Hi there, Thrill Seekers. Today's Monday Moldy Oldie is from 2016 in Germany in Benediktushof, which is a retreat center where I go and lead retreats every year. And I was there this year in 2021, and I'll be there next year, so you can always find me there one time a year. And the question that is being asked is about how different teachers will insist that their way is the only way, and then another teacher will say something completely opposite and say that that's the only way. And in case you can't hear what the questioner is asking, he talks about going to, I believe, a lecture by Muho, who's a German guy who was the abbot of Antaiji Temple in Japan, and how Muho, I think he's saying Muho, told him that the only way to eat mindfully is to eat very, very fast, and he explains why. And then he went to a Thich Nhat Hanh retreat where the Thich Nhat Hanh people said, or maybe it was Thich Nhat Hanh himself, said that the only way to eat mindfully is to eat very, very slowly and taste every bite. So that's, in case you can't understand exactly what the questioner is saying, that's the gist of it. But I left the question in because he says more than that. So there you go, and it's my answer as to why some teachers insist on their way is the only way and what to do about that. And my wife says I look guapo in this clip. So let's see if I look guapo.
I have problems to understand that there are no rules in Buddhism which are true. So every tradition is looking to find mindfulness practice. So there was a discussion with Mu in Berlin some years ago, and the people asked him, why you are eating so slow in your tradition? And he said, yeah, it's necessary. No, so fast. Mm-hmm. Why are you eating so fast? Yeah, it is necessary. We have to eat fast to be mindful in this moment. So you eat so fast that you have no chance to think at every other things. And there are as well different traditions, such as the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh and so. They are eating extremely slow, piece by piece. And they say it is the only way to be mindful. So, and that is not easy for me to understand.
Yeah.
The one tradition say that is right, and the other tradition say that different is right.
It's an interesting question, and it's something I've thought about, and let me see if I can answer it, because it's something, yesterday when I was writing this little article for the blog, I wrote the words, if somebody says there can only be one way to do Zen, they don't understand Zen. And as I wrote that, I realized, no, that's not really true, because there's some people who only respond to a very rigid sort of environment. And for them, maybe they need a kind of inflexible Zen in which the teacher says, this is the only way that's right. And for those people, that can be helpful. So this is how I understand things like Dogen. A lot of people get confused about Dogen because he's just one teacher and he's contradicting himself, not just between different traditions, but in some of his writings he says very clearly anyone and everyone should practice Zen, and everyone, no matter who they are, has an equal ability to attain the highest truth of Buddhist practice or Zen practice. And then in other writings he says only a monk who is ordained can ever understand Zen. No one else outside of this tradition, outside of the monastic, can ever understand it. And he says both of these things. And some people say, well, he started one way and then changed his mind. But I don't believe that, because if you actually examine the history of the writings, you can see that he was revising these older pieces that said everybody can do it during the same years as he was writing these other pieces that said nobody can do it. And he didn't change them. He didn't change the original versions to say that nobody could do it. So I don't think there was a group of people who needed to hear, you are the only ones who can do it. And for those people, he said that to help them in their practice. So I think there are always different ways, and even when there are contradictions, they're okay, because we have to kind of learn to live with these contradictory ways, because it's a very tricky thing, and I think we haven't learned yet to manage it. Especially, I don't know how it is, maybe it's the same in Germany. I know for Americans, it's a very sensitive subject when somebody says my way is the only way, because we're worried that the next thing that happens is they're burning down the other people's churches and killing them and doing all these other things. But I think there's a way to manage that where you can say this way is the only way, and just let everybody else have their other way too. And understand that just the fact that it's contradictory doesn't really mean that much. So I think for people who want to eat slowly, they should go to Thich Nhat Hanh, and for people who want to eat fast, they can go to a Japanese teacher who eats fast. And I think there is a place for all of that. In my own, it kind of is something that for myself was very important because of my two teachers. So I had Tim McCarthy, who was he was young and he was weird, and he and I liked the same bad monster movies and had very similar tastes in music and things like that. And he had a certain way of saying things. Then I went with Nishijima, and he was very different. He's old, he's Japanese, he's much more traditional, not in every way, but in a lot of ways. But then Nishijima said I should be a teacher in his lineage. And at first I thought, well, that doesn't make any sense, because I'm not like you. How can I be a teacher in your lineage? But I think maybe fundamentally, there was a similarity in the way he thought of things and the way I thought of things, which was this idea that we can have room for these contradictions. So it's not a matter of saying, well, this way is the single right way that is, for everybody and for all of time, because there isn't anything like that. There never is. Still, some people like to hear that, so it's sometimes useful for some people to hear that this way is the only way. Nishijima would say that this way is the only way, but then it was like, okay, this way is the only way. It's all right. Anyway, my way is the only way. So just remember that. Everybody else is lying to you. They're all cheating you. They don't know the truth. Huh?